Hello, and welcome to Connecting You to You Radio, where we tune in to receive the messages of health and well-being that are being broadcast from the soul. I'm your host, Lisa Warner, author of The Simplicity of Self-Healing. I show you how to heal your body naturally by combining your body's innate intelligence with the wisdom of your own soul, so that you can break through the mental programming of limiting beliefs that cause disease and make healing your body and changing your life simple. Hello and welcome, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Conversations in Consciousness with Lisa and Keith. I'm Lisa Warner. And Keith is on mute.
Keith is muted. Oops.
I am Keith Lee on mute. And today we have a very special guest. Her name is Amy Tadisco. And let me tell you a little bit about her. The stuff for you to know is that from a small town activist to a nationally recognized leader in detoxifying homes and lifestyles for the past 30 years, Amy Tadisco is a catalyst for positive change. She's a green living expert and mentor. She's a life reinvention coach. She's a retreat leader, a speaker, and an author. And she lives on her organic farm in Vermont with her partner, Dave. Also happens to be a very dear friend of mine. And if you've read my book, Walking with My Angels, Amy is the one who I was walking with when I finally was told that it was time to write the book. And it's because of Amy. She said, "When are you going to write that book?" And I said, "Yeah, when am I?" And then she was like, "What?" And I said, "Oh, sorry, that was for them, not you." And then we kept walking, and then I heard, "It's time." And I was like, "It's time?" And she's like, "Time for what?" And I'm like, "Just a second. For the book?" "Yes." "Yes, yes." So I got the yes while I was hiking with Amy. And then she jumped into the coaching mode, which I just
Can't
spoke
help
about.
it.
Right? And said, "So when are you going to start that book?" And I was like, "As soon as I get home." So I went home, did the roadmap, and the rest is history. So yes, he's that Amy. And Dave and her significant other, awesome mate Davey, is
Yeah.
uh, is an organic farmer and a dear friend. And it's because of them and their work that Mara and I were able to be so incredibly healthy in the body while we were living in Waitsfield, Vermont for 5.5 years. And I lived on those carrots, boy.
I was going to say those sweet carrots. I
I
always think of you guys whenever I'm putting them in bags.
I ate so many carrots that I literally at one point Dave was like, "You have to stop eating the carrots. You're turning into an Oompa
Turning
Loompa.
orange.
You're
Yeah,
turning orange."
right.
Like, no. And then I'll switch to more kale, please.
Right, exactly. A little balance with kale.
Yeah, yeah. And so I'm so grateful that you're here with us
Well,
today.
thank you
And
for inviting me. It's fun
yeah,
to chat with you guys.
yeah. So when you say green living, go ahead and share with everybody, like, what does that
Yeah,
mean?
that's a great question because it's not like there's a universal, easy to understand answer. And so green living for me goes beyond, carbon neutral and energy efficiency and all that good stuff. Those things are important. For me, green living is really about the food choices and the household products and the home environment you're creating and, limiting your toxins as much as you possibly can. And I know that this is near and dear to you guys, but the whole idea of holistic lifestyle strategies to actually prevent illness. And even, if you're dealing with some kind of disease, to use those tools to help you get rid of them and, essentially avoid as much of Western medicine and that pharmaceutical hamster wheel that so many people are on. So that's kind of where I've been focusing. It really started there for me. And, I've dabbled in the other areas. But that's where I feel like we have the most ability to make choices and change things for ourselves. The impact of what we buy every day is very powerful.
Mm. Yeah, I miss being there because I got so spoiled with there actually being prana and chi
Yeah.
in my vegetables and being able to like eat kale and literally get a body rush because of all the
So
goodness.
that's such a good point, Keith, because, I noticed the difference because I live on this organic farm and we grow this incredible food. I don't get to eat it in the wintertime because, Vermont is cold. So I noticed the difference when I buy food from the store, whether it's, even though it's certified organic, it doesn't have that life force energy. And so one of the things that's really fun is when I take people for tours on the farm, they get to pick things right off the vine and taste them. And I've had people say, "Oh, I really don't like kale." And I said, "Okay, well, why don't you just take this little piece off here and see what you think of it?" And so they'll taste it like, "Wow, okay. It's not what I thought." And even better still, when the folks stay for lunch, I do a special massaged kale dish, which is really raw kale, but you massage it with olive oil, lemon juice, and salt. And so it actually starts to break it down as though it were beginning to be cooked. So it's not quite as bitter as it would be off the plant. And then I make this special peanut butter tamari maple sauce, and people go nuts for it. And they're just like, "Oh my gosh, this is really good. I think maybe I do like kale."
I have got a lot of people on the kale wagon over the
Totally,
years.
especially with that recipe.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And then take two.
yeah, exactly.
And and I've got so many people on the kale train over the years, and I remember Brussels sprouts. I remember my whole life I was like, I hate Brussels sprouts,
Yeah.
and there was the very last of the year farmers market where Dave had the Brussels sprouts on the branch, and
Ooh, aren't they cool that way?
there was very few left, and he was like, you better get one of the Brussels sprouts before it's gone, right?" And I was just
Yeah.
like, yeah, and I made the face, and he's like, "Oh, no, 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 no." He's go, "Here, I'm gonna give you this." So he
Aw,
gave me one of the last, and he said, "Go home," and told me exactly how to cook, what to do, and he said,
wow.
"And then try it, and then see if you ever make the face again." And so yeah, I took the Brussels sprouts home, and Mara cooked them just the way that he said, and I was
Yeah,
just like, "Oh my God, these are so good," because it was a taste that nothing else tastes like that. Nothing tastes like Brussels
exactly.
sprouts. But I get that my mom was buying like the super cheap ones, and then just like
Right,
boiling it and throwing butter on it, right?
right,
That's
right.
not, you're not going to bring out the
And they
good.
are probably pretty old because you probably know that most of the stuff in the supermarket is at least a week to 2 weeks old when it arrives.
Yeah,
So, I
yeah,
mean, not a
yeah,
lot of it. That's why actually in the winter I buy frozen organic.
yeah.
But you know what? We just got a freeze dryer. And
Ooh,
those things are unbelievable. The food lasts for 25 years. The nutrient value is something around 93%. And that's the highest of any kind of, processing that you could do for food. So I am psyched because we're going to sell some of it at the farm stand, but I want to make, different meals, organic lasagna, soups, stews, and freeze dry them so that, you just add water, reconstitute it, and you're good to go.
wow.
So
That,
that's pretty exciting.
Mm.
that's awesome. Yeah, I remember. I remember when I discovered that asparagus was my favorite vegetable because I
Really?
grew up with canned asparagus. I thought
Ooh,
I thought asparagus was like just this like limp, like
nasty.
ooh, it was just
Yes,
gross.
Slimy.
absolutely agree. Any kind of canned vegetable goes for
But
me.
yeah, that first time I had real asparagus, I was like, wait, what?
Yeah, totally different
Awesome.
animal.
When I was a kid, my mom actually got me to like canned spinach. And
Oh, no
so
kidding.
by the time I tried not canned spinach, I was like, oh my God, because I already like the
Wow.
other.
I don't even think I've tried canned spinach.
It's really gritty and kind of
Ugh.
tastes like dirt almost,
Oh gosh.
but
And you got
she
to liking it.
but she told me the story
Oh,
about Popeye,
Popeye.
right? I
Popeyes.
eat me spinach, and I would watch those cartoons, and I was just like, I want to be strong like Popeye. So I was just,
Yeah.
that's how she got me to eat my vegetables. Pretty smart.
Wow.
Uh,
That's
so
amazing.
yeah, by the time I tried like real spinach, like or fresh and organic. I was just like, oh my God,
Ooh, Keith, did
delicious.
you ever try the frost enhanced spinach?
No.
Oh, so on rare occasions, I don't know why he doesn't grow it more often. I'm going to grow it in our own little home garden.
Yeah.
But spinach after the frost is like unbelievably sweet and delicious, because what happens with greens when there's a frost, they're still rooted to the ground. There's like this antifreeze type of reaction that happens with the plant to keep it alive.
Yeah.
But that creates this incredibly more nutrient dense and sweeter tasting green. It is just spectacular. I actually prefer that. I don't love, I mean, I like spinach, but I prefer it cooked. But frost enhanced is far and beyond the best.
Wow.
Oh no.
I know.
Sounds
This is like
good.
becoming a cooking show now.
Yeah.
Wow. So then do you have to just harvest it like immediately, like before
No,
it
actually you
thaws?
don't, because as long as it's still rooted to the ground, it can freeze and defrost and it doesn't destroy the leaf like you would
Ah,
imagine it would. Like it would if it was in your refrigerator, right? If the refrigerator got too cold, the cut leaf will definitely become destroyed. But as long as it's still rooted in the earth, if it goes beyond, I don't know what temperature, probably something 20 something,
mm,
it probably doesn't do well, but you can get some of those light frosts and defrosts, and then it's still good.
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, kale is one of the perfect vegetables because it can, like, I've seen kale still growing in snow.
Oh
Like,
yeah, absolutely.
keeps going.
Yeah. Yep. That's one of the cool things about it. Actually, I've done that in my home garden because I have gardens up by our house as opposed to, the ones down in the field. And I've picked it in the snow. In fact, I've picked Brussels sprouts when there's still snow on the ground.
Mm, yum.
Oops.
Wow. That's awesome.
Dave's
So,
phone.
so what other vegetables do you guys grow?
Oh gosh, potatoes, onions, carrots, all kinds of greens, broccoli, tomatoes, tons of tomatoes, green beans. His favorite are those thin haricot vert, the French ones. Those are the best, I think.
Hmm.
Um, Squashes, all kinds of winter squash, as well as zucchini, yellow squash. Uh, let's see, what am I forgetting, Keith?
Everything.
Peas,
Tomatoes, peas.
corn,
Yeah,
huge on corn.
yeah.
Yeah, he's definitely known around for his corn and his tomatoes. A lot of people come in, especially we get a ton of tourists in this town, and particularly at our farm stand. And people that are staying locally will buy some produce and take it back and cook it, and then they come back and like, oh, those are the best tomatoes I've ever had. And it's true. He grows different varieties so that it's not all one, but a lot of them are heirloom, which are those old fashioned kinds. And but he also has some of the newer varieties which have great taste and really good sweetness to them too.
Yeah.
And he's like the first person to get the tomatoes ripe because he plants them in the heated greenhouse. Like they're already in this, they've just been planted in the soil in the one heated greenhouse.
Mm.
So they'll be arriving before anybody else has them.
It's surprising. Non-genetically modified. Huh.
Ah, yes, imagine that.
Right? Oh my God.
Right? In the state of the food system that's going on today, boy,
Yeah.
it's kind of unique to find not genetic. And now they're calling it bioengineered, right? It doesn't even say GMO anymore.
Yeah, bio.
Look on, go to the supermarket, look on the cans of Campbell's soup, for example, or anything really. You'll see a little asterisk and it says at the bottom, bioengineered ingredient.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Wow.
Yummy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. Oh, and there's a new thing that I actually didn't realize until in the last year. So you've heard of glyphosate, probably, like
Yeah.
Roundup is one of the most overused products. And so not only did they use Roundup on GMO corn, for example, but they're actually using glyphosate on crops like wheat and other grains right before they harvest them because it dries them out faster. So that means there's even more glyphosate residue on that food. So there was a recent study done, and they found some of the most popular oat products had high levels of glyphosate and other stuff.
Mm.
So one of the things I always tell people to do, especially when they're first starting out, is I have this in one of my free ebooks. Actually, I have a free ebook that anybody that's listening is welcome to grab on my website. But the clean canteen, the clean 15 and the dirty dozen list, I created a little thing of both of those. So what that means is you don't want to buy any of the conventional stuff that's on the dirty dozen, because those are the ones that have the most amount of pesticides. And then the clean 15 are much safer. So for example, avocado, you don't really need to spend the extra money for the organic avocado because the skins are so hard that they don't really, the pesticides don't really penetrate through them that much. So if you're trying to save money, look at what the clean 15 is. Like pineapple, I've seen even, the big brands like Dole, they now have this thing that says sustainably raised, sustainably grown or something. Pineapples are another one like avocado that isn't so worrisome as far as the pesticides. But then avoid all of the stuff that's cut, like the cut fruit and the cut veggies and all that stuff, because apparently they've tested at high levels of residues, and they don't have much nutrients left anyway, because once you cut something, they already start to, decline in their nutrient value. So it may seem like it's a way to save time, but you're just kind of throwing away your money at that point and getting toxic ingredients in them.
Wow. It's really quite mind-boggling what has happened, what we as humanity have allowed to happen.
Yes, absolutely. And it's troubling because I think what I've noticed is that people kind of throw up their hands and say, oh, well, everything causes cancer. Why should I pay attention? Why, we're all going to die anyway. Or, my grandfather lived to X age and he's fine. But if you can make better choices for yourself and actually improve your health and vitality, why wouldn't you want to do that? Right? You just have to trust the person or, the information that you're hearing and try it. See if it works for you, because everyone's individual. I don't feel like there's a one size fits all, except for when it comes to getting rid of the toxic stuff. Then in that case, that's good for everybody. But yeah.
Yeah. Like I think about flour when I was young, right? There was a friend of our family, and Lord knows, friend of the family are the people who raised me. One of my moms,
Yeah.
who actually was out of the bed and doing things, would
Oh.
bake bread and make bread from scratch.
Ooh,
And there was
nice.
nothing like that, and it felt like, and I think it was more than just because I thought it, but there was something about that bread that was actually nourishing, right? And then
Yes.
over the years, then it was like all this gluten-free and people having, reactions to the chemicals, but
Yes.
blaming it on gluten. And it's like right now you can go to Italy, and if you're have a gluten story here, and
Yes.
you eat it there, you
Yes.
can be fine because they're still
I've
doing
heard that
it's still like it
countless
was.
times.
Yeah, it's still like it was
Yeah,
back then. They don't believe in
exactly.
actually poisoning everybody in their country with
Right.
garbage.
So there's a company, I forget the name of the company, but the wheat is called einkorn, that is actually the old fashioned wheat that is, unadulterated, really good quality. And the woman that started this company, I think it's Jovial Foods, that produces this einkorn wheat. She did it because her daughter is gluten sensitive or gluten intolerant, I think. And she was looking for some way to find out how she could give her bread and pastas. And so she discovered this whole einkorn thing. And I think it must be similar to what you can get in Europe, because I keep hearing people say, yeah, I went to Europe and I could eat all the pasta and bread I wanted, but I came home and made me sicker than a dog.
Yeah. How do you spell
Yeah.
that? Incorn.
Einkorn.
Okay.
And you can actually get that flour at at a health food store.
Yep.
Wow. Cool.
Yep. Yep. So make your own bread with it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. So you do, in addition to the gardening and the food stuff, you
Yes.
do cleaning products and household things as well.
Oh, yes, exactly. Yep, definitely. And the more that people can make things themselves, or just I mean, I really just use Castile soap, Bon Ami powder, some essential oils, maybe some vinegar and water. I make a little spray bottle with vinegar and water and a dash of dish soap. And that you can use as a multi-purpose spray cleaner. But I mean, the idea that we need all these, different products to clean the toilet and clean the sink and do our dishes is ridiculous. There's very few things that you really need to clean your home. And, the less is more philosophy, I think. The less ingredients you're using, the better off you're going to be. But I mean, it even extends to beyond that. It's like, okay, what are you using for your laundry detergent? Because whatever that is, it's on your clothes and it's on your bed sheets.
Yeah.
So it's with you 24/7. And, even some of the natural ones, like I got a really good brand as far as ingredients, but the smell of it is too strong for me. And so the next time I order it, I'm going to get the free and clear one, or the unscented one, actually, because sometimes free and clear means that they've actually used a different chemical to mask the scent. So you have to be careful with free and clear. Yeah.
Yeah.
Unscented doesn't smell as good oftentimes, but it's going to be a little bit purer.
Wow.
And then you can throw in your own essential oils.
It's like the more and more research that Mara does, and the more she learns, the more she'll come back and be like, "I'm sorry," because like when we met, it was like I'd do a dish, and it would be like, "Did you use soap?" Right? "Did you use soap?" And back then it was kind of regular soap, but then
Right.
it went to a different kind of soap, and then it went to like uh baking soda and water.
Mm-hmm.
Then it went to, and now it's like there's none of that's there anymore. It's like hot water's fine, right?
And
She's
make
like,
sure the water's good quality, right? That's
yeah,
the next level. It's
yeah,
like, okay, what's in your water? Actually, for people that are interested in that, if you aren't on your own well system, if you go to the EWG.org website, which stands for Environmental Working Group, there is a water database, and you go into that page and you put your zip code in, and it tells you what's in your if you have municipal water supply, it'll tell you what chemicals of concern are in there. And there's two different levels. There's what the EPA says is safe, and then there's what people like Environmental Working Group and others will say is safe, and they're often very different. But that way you can find out what's in your water, and then you can figure out what you want to use to clean it. So I don't need to use a filter anymore, but when I did, I loved this little mom and pop company. They're called I think they're changing their name, actually. Lakota Scientific, and I can give a link to you guys if you want to put it in the show notes if people are interested. But it's a great company that takes out a lot of stuff out of the water, and it's reasonably priced also.
Wow, I'm super lucky because I live near a spring, so
Ooh, that is lucky.
I can get water straight out of the ground.
Yeah. It's interesting. Just down the road from us, Keith, did you ever discover this when you were here I think it's on North Fayston Road? There's a spring that's free to anybody, that somebody created the cement, I don't know what you would call it, structure where the little, faucet is. And you can go and get that water whenever you want. And it's actually really tasty.
Yeah, that's like a ritual we do. And
Oh, you did?
Lisa
Aw.
has a one of those kind of in
Oh, you
between.
mean when you're
Yeah,
in
yeah,
the
I
spring
knew of that
down
your
one as
area?
well.
from my house. We have our
Oh, nice.
ritual that I go pick up Keith and we take all of our jugs down to the spring.
Oh, that's
fill
so
everything
cool.
We got a system.
Nice. That's great. Yeah, it's really good.
Straight out of the ground.
Yeah.
Mm,
Gotta love it.
right. Because you get all those good minerals, and
Mhm.
Exactly.
there's a life force energy to the water that way
Right?
too.
Like water itself is supposed to be alive. Like
Yes,
it's a
exactly.
living thing until
Correct.
we pollute it with all this stuff and we kill it.
That's right.
People are
Right.
drinking dead water and they have no idea.
Yeah, one trend that really scares me that some people are doing, is drinking distilled water. And I don't know why so-called experts are recommending that, because distilled water means it has no minerals, right? So you
Right.
take it into your body and it's going to look for those minerals to connect with. And so it's going to pull it out of your bones and your organs. Like,
Yeah.
I don't understand that. Have you guys played with Kangen water yet?
Oh,
Mm-mm.
Kangen?
Kangen,
Yeah,
Kangen.
I've
Yeah.
known people as we've traveled over the years, I've known people that had those machines and
Yeah.
and filled up and was just like, you know.
Have you tasted it? Because I haven't yet. I've got somebody that's got one of those machines is going to give me some water to taste, but I'm
Yeah,
hearing
yeah,
about it again
yeah. It
lately.
tastes really good. And
Hmm.
then you can kind of choose as well levels because it's
Right.
like a pH balance system in there as well. So
Right. Right.
depending on what you want to use it for, you might want more
Hmm.
pH, right? And so
Yeah.
yeah, that's interesting. One of them, it was fun. We visited them and we, in the RV, and so I just like poured out the water I
That's
had in my
cool.
water bottles from the machine that I got as close as you can get when you're driving across the US, right? Just like dumped all that and filled it up with that water.
Yeah. That is a tricky thing when you're driving,
Yeah.
trying to find good quality water or food that's not, especially water that's not in plastic. It's really hard to do that.
Right.
Yeah. It's very true.
Yeah.
Yeah. I learned recently, going back to the household cleaning thing, that you can use pine needles and soak them in vinegar and make a
Ooh.
really good, like a pine sol.
Yeah, that's a really good idea. And
Yeah.
actually, pine needle tea is a very healing tea, and I forget what
Oh,
it does for you, but
yeah.
Mhm.
I remember that
Yeah,
also.
good detox thing.
Neat.
Yeah.
So I'm curious what got you guys inspired to, well, I guess you're going to tell me probably that it was Maura, Keith, but as far as like, how did you start to become aware of all of these issues around food and toxicity and household products and that sort of thing?
Yeah, really. Mara, she researches everything,
Yeah.
you know. And the deeper she goes, sometimes she's really surprised at the actual truth as opposed to what what the marketing says.
Yeah.
In
Yeah.
either camp,
So true.
that's the interesting
Yeah.
thing too, is there's one of the things Amanda Vollmer talks about in the film was when we talked about supplements, and she was like,
Oh, yeah.
how many people have come? It's like one of my favorite parts. How many people have come to me with bags and bags of supplements? And I was like, garbage, garbage, red number 5, garbage,
Yeah. Oh
Oh,
my
wait,
gosh.
this one I actually know the owners and know that they, it's whole food and blah, blah, blah. It's plant-based.
Exactly. Whole
And
food, organic. Yeah,
yeah,
that's really troubling. When I see people have sort of the mainstream brand vitamins on their counter, and I usually say to them, it's probably not going to do you a whole lot of good, and it probably has a bunch of junk in it.
yeah.
Um,
They're like, what? But I thought this was supposed to be healthy.
If you keep an eye on it, that you'll see that one a day just goes right through as
Exactly. I mean,
soon as you put it
and
in.
there are certain vitamins that are water soluble that even in the best quality will, you'll start to see your peas a little more yellow than usual.
Yeah,
Um, but I think most of that junk is just junk.
yes,
Yeah.
it's
goes on
But
through.
that's actually been one of the biggest challenges, I'd say, as somebody who's been into this forever. Um, Even things that I thought were safe, then I have to become aware of, oh gosh, that corporate entity just bought that little company.
Yeah,
Huh, let me check the ingredients now. Did anything
exactly.
change? Is this still a decent product? So it feels like it's a constant um, education process, or being a detective. Things that I used to say, oh yeah, that's a great brand. Now, not sure I want to use that one. I'm going to go with this one. That's still an independent brand. That's actually one of the things in one of my ebooks is I produced the whole list of all the still independent organic food companies
oh nice.
because there's a lot of good ones still out there, but you don't necessarily hear about them. You kind of have to look for them.
One of the things Dave taught Mara was, she started asking him about the stuff that's on it that you were talking about on the vegetables and
Oh yeah,
organic versus non-organic and
right.
cruciferous and all the questions. And Dave was like, you're so sensitive that what I would suggest as you're traveling and you're not here is in any produce section to pick it up and say yes or no.
Oh, Dave said this?
Yeah. He's like,
Oh
look,
my gosh.
like, because you're so clear that I think you'll know which one to go to. So
I'm shocked that he even knew to say. That's awesome. I guess I've had more of an impact on him than I thought.
yeah, and it was in the middle of a conversation of, some of the some of the organic ways that they the pesticides that they use on that they can say are more natural is like nicotine, that's, but you don't want
Right,
to eat nicotine, but hey,
right,
it could work, right?
right,
And so
right,
you
right.
gotta really know what you're getting,
Yeah,
and then some of the things like you were saying, some that have a harder skin, so you don't
right,
even worry about it, so don't pay more for it there, but
right.
ultimately tune in, and so yeah, you did definitely have an impact there.
Oh, wow, that's awesome.
Yeah,
And
Yeah.
that really makes that piece of advice, I think, is good for everything. If we tune into ourselves and trust that intuition, because I know you guys know this, we're all spirits having a human experience. We, on some level, we know. And so if we can really trust that part of ourselves, we're going to be so much better off than if we're, listening to so-called experts tell us that, oh no, this is perfectly safe. This is, or even there's a bunch of farmers I remember early on in the farmers market when I used to go with Dave that would say, oh, well, we grow according to organic standards. I'm like, well, okay, so what does that mean? Because there's a new book that comes out every year and things change. And so, you know, it's not necessarily something that you can go by. I mean, the best thing is to grow it yourself if you can. And then the second next thing is to find somebody like Dave who you can trust and you can come see, come visit the farm and see what he's doing.
yeah. And then he has that added flavor of love,
Hmm.
the love that he
Right.
puts into it. It's palatable. It really is.
Yeah, it's so sweet. And I remember somewhere, and I have not been able to find the statistic to back this up, but I remember somewhere we've always heard about whoever prepares your food, their energy obviously gets into the food, right? But
Right.
then I heard that whenever whoever is growing it is actually even more important because they are touching it with their energy multiple times. And I wish I could find that piece of information because it makes so much sense, but I haven't been able to attribute it to anywhere.
Mm.
Yeah. Well, that's what was interesting about the farmers market is there are other people, right, that
Yes.
were also growing vegetables, and so there were
Yes.
multiple places, but I would maintain that I could energetically feel the difference
Oh,
and
that's so
taste the
cool.
difference
Yeah.
between the farmers. And I
Yeah.
remember asking Dave about that one time, asking about the corn specifically too. I
Yeah.
said, they're saying non-GMO, but I'm not really getting that, and he's like,
Ooh.
that one has a farm right next to somebody who's buying the GMO stuff. So there's a thing called wind. So
Yeah.
I'm
Right.
sure,
Because and the thing that's really key about that is if you're growing corn near a conventional corn grower,
yeah,
if you have your corn at the same growth, level, when they spray it, then it's going to impact your corn.
yeah,
It's not as bad apparently if your corn is ahead or behind and they spray it. I mean, still you're going to get some residue on it, but it's not going to impact the plant quite as much as if it's at the exact same growing pace, which I thought was interesting because we used to across the field from us, they used to grow GMO corn.
I remember.
And I remember they would be spraying and it would be windy. And I'd say to Dave, wait a minute, they're not allowed to do that on a windy day. I'm going inside right now. I don't want to get sprayed by this stuff. And luckily we didn't have any corn in this field at the time.
Right.
But yeah, it's kind of wacky. I mean, that brings up that whole case of Percy Schmeiser, that poor Canadian farmer that first got sued by Monsanto. Do you remember that story?
Mm-hmm.
So he didn't grow GMO corn, but what supposedly happened was a corn truck went by and spread some of the GMO corn seed onto his land.
Wow.
And Monsanto came and allegedly took samples and claimed that he was growing their corn. And one of the things about GMO corn is you can't save seed from year to year. You have to buy it new each time.
Correct.
And so they were accusing him of stealing their seed and planting it. And it was just insane. And I think initially they won, but I feel like the decision might have been overturned finally over the years. I think
Yeah.
he finally was able to win out, but I mean, how insane is that? We should be able to sue, the genetically modified
Right.
places for distributing their stuff. I mean, it's already loose in the environment. We can't recall it, but
Mm.
it just seems like even more of an assault if you're growing organic and somebody, drops some seeds into your land or some pollen blows over onto your plants and
Yeah.
obviously the pesticides, but
I've noticed the last few years now, when I'm driving by any cornfields too, they literally are posts with ads for that
yes,
genetically
exactly.
modified seed, and they'll be like the same, and then there'll be like a competitor across the street, and I'm like,
Yeah.
oh my God, now they're into that. And so my favorite story, which I'm not gonna tell on the air, but my favorite story is the one that Dave tells when they came to bully him and say, you have to buy our seeds, and how he handled that was just so brilliant, and why I was just like so grateful, right, for
Wow.
to be able to continue to eat food that I knew was genetically modified after,
Right.
after they left, but they literally came, saying they were requiring all the farmers to throw away their old seeds that they'd been saving and cultivating and for years and
Right.
years and all that, and they were like, you have to get rid of those and you have to use ours, or fill in the blank, this will happen.
Well,
And
actually, that reminds me of this crazy story of a local high school, a private school in our area, and the science teacher was very pro GMO. And he did this whole experiment with the kids, and they came to our farm, and Dave didn't realize what they were asking to be on the farm for, but they took samples of our produce without our knowing it,
wow.
tested it in their lab, and then tried to claim that there was GMOs in, I think, 2 or 3 different things. It was absolutely outlandish and totally false, and we called the school and complained, and finally the guy, had to make an apology to us, and I said he has to do it publicly, because if anybody sees this study, so-called study,
Yeah.
they're going to think that we're lying about how we grow our food, and that is very damaging to a business that is all about authenticity and honesty. And
Right.
so he had to write a public apology in the newspaper and pull that stupid study off the internet. And actually, the only way I found out about this was because I was on some kind of a seminar and I heard it mentioned, and then I saw our name listed as one of the farms. I was like, what is this?
What?
So I was just in the right place at the right time to find out that there was this thing even happening.
Wow.
So that was crazy.
The world is pretty insane.
It can be. It can be.
Goodness gracious.
Yeah.
I just, I just remember, I don't remember how I ended up really getting on the organic bandwagon, but I just remember going to, buy food, or, like buy a frozen pizza or something. And, just looking at the label and going, I don't recognize any of these ingredients. Like, what
Oh,
is all of this stuff?
yeah.
And then it's like, wait a second, something's weird here.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I was really lucky. I think Keith, you know the story that, I grew up in New York City and my mom was really into nutrition. She was into, I don't know if anybody recognizes the name, I just lost the name of it. Adele Davis. That she was a popular nutritionist, I think back in the 70s. And my mom wasn't really aware of organic yet, although her Aunt JoJo, my great Aunt JoJo, who lived in Morgantown, West Virginia, grew all of her own food as much as she could and was teaching my mom about this. And so my stepfather was a chef. So we had made from scratch food every day. And she knew enough to know that, soda was terrible, sugary cereals we didn't get. We really had no processed foods except for this one thing, Velveeta cheese. And I put cheese in quotes. I don't know why she thought that was okay, but anyway. So I got a really good start early on. And then when my first real job was when I was 16, I worked in a health food store in the Upper East Side. And that's where I started to discover, ooh, organic food, what's that? And then all the supplements and homeopathy. And so I tried different things that summer. I tried a fruit and vegetable fast. I did a macrobiotic diet. I ended up at one time working for a macrobiotic chef to help her prepare the meals and drop them off to people. And then fast forward to when I was pregnant with my daughter, Diana, that's when I discovered about all these toxic things in household products. And it was this little tiny paperback book called the Non-Toxic Baby. And I was reading about, shampoos and cleaning products and rugs and paints. And I thought, how is this possible? Why isn't anybody telling us this? And more importantly, why aren't they protecting us? Right? I mean, there's so little thought to not only what ingredients are in one product, but what happens when you combine all of these different things into a home, and the more airtight we are as far as insulation and all that, there's going to be more toxins building up in the environment. So in your house, in your own home.
Exactly. Or not.
And they're back.
Yeah.
Mm.
Awesome. So, I was recently reading a series of books called The Ringing Cedars of Russia. And it's about this woman who, it's a true story. And she was born and raised on the forest floor of the Russian taiga. And her whole life mission is, like, her consciousness is extremely pure, like totally unadulterated consciousness, because no interaction with society. But
Oh,
she
wow.
has remote viewing. She has, she's fully connected to the entire universe. And her entire focus on life is to help the people that go to the dakas in the summer, the little summer houses where they have their own gardens.
Oh,
And she really says in this book that having your own garden and really learning how to, connect to the land, connect to the plants, is what will save the planet.
that's a good message. And I agree with that. And the more the climate changes, the more challenging it becomes to grow. And certainly on a large scale. I think it's not quite as devastating, maybe, for smaller gardens. But I'll tell you, we've had crazy weather here in the last number of years, and 2 floods within 5 months in Vermont in the last year. That's unheard of.
Wow.
So I've actually really had to tune into the land and the nature spirits and the plant spirits, because there was a situation that happened last year that could not possibly have made sense from a scientific perspective. And what that is that there was so we have warmer temperatures sometimes in the spring, so things start to blossom. And so the strawberries were in blossom, and then we were headed into really cold. And there's only so many degrees that you can protect plants, with the row covers that we use. I think you can protect down to maybe 27 degrees, right? And we were going into the like 21 degree level. And we were both, Dave and I were in a panic. Oh my God, what are we going to do? We can't, there's not a whole lot we can do. So that's when I start to go to, okay, I'm going to talk to the nature spirits. I went out and I mean, I'm not Native American, and I have tremendous respect for Native American people and their practices. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to do a little offering of cornmeal at the, each row, and ask for a little prayer that all of the strawberry, nature spirits and all the others that are out there protecting, please protect these plants. And Dave put some water in the soil through the drip irrigation, because wet is supposed to actually help things not freeze as much. And miraculously, they all survived. And we had to hand pollinate everything because there were no native pollinators around at the time that we needed them. This is the second time that this has happened. So we went with feather dusters up and down the rows, and you have to do it like every day. And it was the best strawberry season with that field that we've ever experienced. Those plants just kept producing, and they gave big berries. Usually what happens is you get the king berries first, right? The biggest berries, and then more berries are being produced throughout the, short growing season of strawberries, and you get smaller and smaller berries typically. But this past year, they kept coming and they were big, and it was unbelievable.
Wow.
So whenever any kind of challenging weather comes, like the flood that we had the first time, which actually we were very worried that the pond behind us was going to overflow and like take the house and the farm with it. I again went to talk to, all the different nature spirits that are listening and asked for their protection, and we were very lucky. So I am a big fan of doing that.
Yeah,
Yes.
and they loved the special attention.
Yes, exactly. And I try not to just do that when I need their help.
Yeah.
I try to say thank you and be appreciative of the amazing, work that they're doing behind the scenes that, many of us don't even realize.
A lot of people don't consider what we call in our tribe, our group, weather magic.
Mm.
If two or more are gathered in agreement, it's done. So when
Ah,
we have a specific thing coming up that we all want to do together, and
yeah,
we look at the AI and it says something different, we'll all come together and create,
Mhm.
the perfect
that's awesome.
the perfect day for that. And so
Yeah, that's really cool.
there's strength in numbers when it comes to manifestation. I'm sure you
Yes,
you
yes.
are aware of.
Fully believe that.
Yeah. So let's say I'm watching this. How do I work with you remotely to advise me on the things that I should have in my home, how to tend
Yeah.
in any of that?
Sure. So I still am doing some sessions with people online. So we'll hop on Zoom and I'll do a personalized one-on-one type of, mentoring guidance session. Really, what I first have people do is fill out this pretty extensive questionnaire that kind of goes through all the different topics in the home. So you can get a sense of, or I can get a sense really of what you're dealing with. And then, whatever your goals are, we'll focus around those. So yeah, doing a one-on-one session that way. I have a couple of ebooks. I'm actually developing a podcast myself, which
Yay.
I'm hoping to launch by not hoping, I'm intending to launch by June 1st. And that I've already named it the Green Living Now podcast. Green Living Now is actually the name of my LLC, even though my coaching business is Catalyst for Change.
Yeah.
And I've already developed, I don't know, you saw it, I think online there on Facebook, I had 4 different images that a designer had created for my podcast logo. And it was like the most popular Facebook post I think I've had. People were so cool about weighing in on that. So yeah, so the ebooks, I'm going to probably do some online workshops coming up soon. So just if you hop on my website, then you'll see things. And actually, the best thing to do is sign up for my free ebook, the Breaking Free from Toxins book, because then you're on my email list. You'll get other informative articles, and you'll find out whenever I'm doing any kind of events.
So
Oh,
that's
fantastic.
whylivegreen.com, right?
That's the easiest way to get there. Yeah, that forwards it to my Catalyst for Change.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Great. We'll have everybody that's watching now, just check the show notes and we'll have the links in there. So you can just click the links in the show notes.
Awesome.
Yes, yes. And I have to highly recommend, even if you're just needing support in your life, in your everyday life. Uh, this master is a really, really great coach at
Oh, thank you.
helping pull out of you next steps, helping pull out of you underlying truths. All the stuff that a great coach can do. Amy
Thank
is
you.
really
Yes.
good.
And actually, just on that topic, I love the bigger the goal, the better. It's so much more fun. Like I typically work with people that are, in some sort of life transition, whether they're just newly divorced or empty nest or retired or whatever, something that tends to open them up to wanting to make big changes. So whether it's starting a business or moving to a new location, changing careers, attracting a soulmate, all of that stuff, I love to work with people because it's just it's very satisfying to see people go from a dream to a reality. And that's, that's one of my favorite things to work on.
Yeah, and as like you always want your coach to have done what you want to do, right?
Yes.
So if you
Thank you.
so if you think about Amy's, like she's in the middle of nowhere in Vermont. It's a sweet town, but it's a very small town. It's
Yep.
You're gonna drive an hour if you want to go to a Best Buy, right?
Yep.
There, right? And so out there doing well, making a living and making a difference, right?
Right.
In the middle of nowhere, Vermont. And it's like
Right.
and if that's not a inspirational teacher to teach it, I don't know who is.
Thank you. Well, and I feel like I've been an entrepreneur pretty much ever since I got out of college. I actually started a photography business right out of school. So I've been a sort of a multiple entrepreneur.
Yeah, it
That's
runs deep in the
It
veins.
does. It does. It's just kind of who I am.
Mm,
Thank you for that, though.
You're welcome. Yeah, I think of like where did I get the entrepreneurial gene? Because it's like my grandmother is one of the people that raised me, but she was work hard, she worked at Coles
Oh,
Market and worked her way to management, and then she made good, management money, but it was like
yeah.
work hard, and my mom was like, don't work at all, get welfare, and it was
Oh,
like, so where did the entrepreneurial bug even come from? But it
yeah.
really
Where do you
didn't come.
think?
It was because I was a poor kid and I didn't have money. Then I was like, I need to make it myself. Nobody else is gonna make
Ah,
it for
yeah.
me, and I'm tired of asking grandma for it. So
Oh,
one
wow.
one Christmas, I remember I think I talk about this in the book. One Christmas I said, Mom, I need $5. Give me $5. I'm gonna give it back to you. And back then there was a store called Pick and Save, and they had cards, boxes of Christmas cards, gorgeous Christmas cards for 99 cents a box.
Oh,
And then
wow.
the really, really nice ones were 1.99. And so I took the $5 and I bought five $1 boxes of cards. And I purposely put on my most tattered clothes. I put a little dirt on my face because
Oh my gosh.
my mom had moved us to a rich neighborhood so that I could go to school at a better school and hopefully not be a gang member or drug addict and die by the time I was
Yeah.
20. So, and I went and knocked on all the rich people's doors and said, which was the truth. I'm selling these Christmas cards because my family doesn't have money, and this Christmas I want to get my mom, my sister, and my grandmother a real gift, not from money
Wow.
that people gave me, but from money that I earned.
Yeah.
And these people who were well-to-do were just like, really? Wow. Oh,
That's
yeah.
impressive.
Yes. How much is a box of cards? It's $7. Great. Here. One lady even said, here's 10 and keep the cards.
oh,
Right?
Aw. How
Because
old
what
were you, Keith?
I was probably 11.
That's impressive.
Well, no, we were in the area that we were in. I had to be 12. 12.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
So I'm like 12 years old. And so then I took the money that I made from those cards, went straight back, bought more,
What
but then I was
more?
able to buy some of the 199 ones, which were really, really nice, epic, and I could charge more money for those. And
Yeah.
so I just kept turning these cards over. I gave mom her $5 back, and I had enough to buy my sister, my grandmother, and my mom 14 karat gold necklaces for Christmas
Wow.
with the
That's
money
so
that I made,
beautiful.
going door to door, knocking doors in a rich neighborhood, telling the truth,
That's amazing.
right?
Right, exactly. You weren't making up a story.
Right, right. I mean,
That
I
is incredible.
added a little bit to the
I mean,
visuals,
adding the dirt maybe was a little over the top, but
but hey, I was 12.
right, exactly.
I probably did get a
Has some
couple.
acting skills mixed in there.
Yeah, exactly. But it was just yeah, and so that's when I kind of got the bug. I was just like,
Wow.
wow, okay, so clearly I'm not going to be able to go to USC, which I want to go to
Yeah.
learn how to be a businessman. So I have to do this myself.
Yeah.
And so I just took it on and said, okay, so if I'm going to have anything, it's going to be me. And so I just kind of started doing entrepreneurial things, right? Buying,
Yeah.
selling things and flipping things, and just that's how I stepped into it.
That's so amazing. So, who would you say has been the biggest influence on you as far as, I mean, I know you've met some of the big people like Bob Proctor, right? Didn't you
Yeah,
meet him?
yeah.
And Jack Canfield. And so who would you say has had the biggest impact on you as far as your entrepreneurial spirit?
Um, Entrepreneurial, probably Jack, but as far
Okay.
as business and how I viewed people who had money as opposed to
Yeah.
people who didn't, and how they got it and all of that. I had a what I call a rich dad when I was
Oh,
young. One of my friends in high school, his name was Russ, and his father was Russell Sr., who was a dentist, and
huh.
he was a very wealthy dentist, and he would have a party at his house once a week where all these people who were business owners who were successful would come and gather.
Wow.
And he heard me one time in Russ's room playing and singing, and he was just like, God, you are a really great musician. And
Yeah.
and then we started a conversation, and then he found out more about my mom and my family and how I was being raised. And he was like, would you come to my party and play some music?
Ooh.
And so he invited me to the party. And so I was like, absolutely. So I came and I played music for everybody. And then he took me and he started introducing me to everybody in the room. And he started saying, what would you tell him if he wanted to not
No way.
work?
It's like a business mastermind.
Yes. Well, if he didn't want to work for the man for the rest of his life, what would you
Yeah.
tell him? And so he got all these people to share with me their knowledge about being business owners. And he kept
Whoa.
inviting me to these parties regularly. And Russ got so mad. He was like, what? He's my friend, not
Yeah. Yeah. I can totally see that
right.
happening.
And I heard this in the other room because Russ took his young Russ took his dad in the other room to basically shout at him. And then I heard my rich dad say, think about it. Like, you've been to his house, you know his mom, you know he has no father. Like,
Right.
where's he supposed to get skills? At school? Like, is that where
Mm,
he's get it? And he's
Nope.
like, so no. He says, if I can give him this, I'm going to, and you're just
yeah.
gonna have to deal with it. And Russ was just like, okay, all right.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was just the most beautiful
That's
thing.
a pretty invaluable little training ground.
Yeah, so I wrote a song called Happiness Doesn't Come in a Jar. And the hook is, if you find a job doing something that you love, you'll never work a day in your life. And he was the
Nice.
person who told me that. And if you find a job
Oh,
doing something that you love, you'll never work a day in your life.
nice.
So that's a thing that people say, which means do something that you love.
Exactly.
Said, but a job, let it only be a job when you first start because you started the business and you have to work it.
Yeah,
Eventually, you want to work your way out of that because you don't
exactly.
want a job. You want a business. And there's a
Right.
big difference, young man.
Totally.
He
Mm,
got, he got into teaching me that. So it was like, thank God for that guy.
Yeah, that's awesome. Little guardian angel to
yeah.
start off with.
Boy, I
Yes.
could use one of those.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
I still use one of those.
I think we all
I got
can.
teeth, but
Yeah.
goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah. Working
Wow.
a job was never on, it was just, oh, that's
Not on me
Well,
a job.
that's what motivated me
killing
to
me.
start my own business out of college. I mean, I temped at the same time to, make enough money to live because I was living in Boston. But I just knew that I was not the kind of person that could work for other people for very long. Because one of the things I noticed was I would work harder than the owners and care more about the company. And I was like, this is ridiculous. What am I putting so much of my energy and expertise into this person who doesn't really even care that much?
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
and I just like setting goals and achieving them, getting new ideas, following the inspiration, following the curiosity. Okay, let's see what's next.
Yeah, and then I wanted to be like a different kind of boss. I didn't.
Ah,
I had to work a ton of jobs because I
yeah,
had skills, so I had to work my
right.
way into where I am now for sure.
Yeah,
Restaurant business. So it was like,
that's a tough
but I
one.
had so many jerk bosses that I was like, when I own a business, I'm going to be the opposite of that. And
Right.
here's
You know all the things not to be.
right, here's how I'm going to be. And so, like our production manager in our company, Autumn, is just brilliant. So as
Wow.
much as I can, any exchange that we have I told you how much I appreciate you?
Aw, and that I would say is probably the single most important thing that I observed because I had very few bosses that would do that for their employees.
Yeah.
But I think that makes people like you, like us, stand out so much more because, and it's an authentic thing. It's not like you're just saying it to try to get them to produce better, right?
Right.
It's like, you really mean it. You feel it.
Oh my God, yes.
And you know what it's like to be in their shoes.
Yeah, because even in our business, I was doing everything that she does now,
Yeah,
plus being the sales guy and the face for the
right.
business. So it was just like,
That's a lot. So you already knew what it
yeah.
took.
So, but I
Yeah,
was like, but if I was going to replace me, who would I do that with? And there was only
right.
two people walking the face of the earth I would even trust with that, and one of them was
Yeah.
like, I'm busy, you
Yeah.
know. So, and
I'm
then
doing the other stuff.
yeah, and the second one, I got download of Autumn, and then I asked Mara, like, if you were going to replace me with anybody in the world, who would you say would be able to do that? And then Mara looked at me and said, Autumn is what I'm getting. I was
Ooh,
like, what? Because we literally both had pulled that out of the ethers
that's
from
amazing.
everybody in the world, and
Right?
yeah, and so I'm like, but she has a job last I knew. So right at that moment, I said, well, let me check. And I went to Facebook, and she had just put up a post that said, I just left my soul-sucking corporate job,
No way. Perfect.
walked
Divine
out,
timing.
burned that bridge the way I left. So do you know anybody who's hiring? And I was just like,
No way.
I just instantly sent a message and said, would you like to be me? And she's like, what do you mean by that? And I was like, oh,
Yeah,
literally
please
teach you
explain.
everything I know about this business, and you'll be doing everything that I'm doing except for sales and being the face
Right.
and speaking and stuff that you don't, the other stuff. And
Right. The stuff that you like to do,
yeah,
I assume.
yeah. So she's been doing it ever since, and it's just
Wow, that's
amazing.
fantastic.
Yeah, it's so good.
Nice.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, this has been like such a great, fun conversation.
Definitely all kinds of interesting topics.
Yes. Thank you so much, Amy.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, like I say, I hope this summer is the one that we finally get to meet in person.
Yes, that would be lovely.
Don't live that far apart. So
Exactly. Yeah, we'll have to figure out something for sure.
yes.
Yes, and it's been a pleasure for me because today I get to be on with two people whom I'm extremely grateful for and who
Aw.
have made a profound difference in my life. So thank you both. I love you both so much. It's
Aw, right back at you, Keith.
been a
For sure.
pleasure.
You too.
Absolutely.
Great. Well, Amy, thank you so much. And
My pleasure, Lisa. Thank you.
you are welcome. For everybody that's watching on the podcast or on YouTube, check the show notes and you will have the links for Amy. Click that link and get the ebook.
Yes, definitely get the ebook. It's got 3 really important tips, like the 3 things that I start people out with.
Perfect.
Beautiful. I will
Yeah.
be signing up right after this.
Yay.
Awesome.
Awesome.
And we'll see you all next time on Conversations in Consciousness. Until then, what is it, Lisa?
Create for yourselves a great week because you can.
That's right.
Bye for now.
For now.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Connecting You to You Radio. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe and share it with your friends. Are you ready to discover more about how simple healing your body can actually be when you do it from the higher wisdom of your soul? To learn more about what I do and how you can work with me, visit connectingyoutoyou.com and get on my mailing list to be the first to know about my latest offerings. If you'd like to interact with me on Facebook, please join my group, Soul Sourced Healing. Check the show notes below for these links and more. I hope to see you again next time on Connecting You to You Radio.